What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Better Than Rich show. We're so glad that you are here to be with us this Sunday morning. I'm Andrew Biggs, your host, and I'm here with my special co-host, Mike Abramowitz. Mike, how you doing today?
Feeling great, Andrew. Excited to kick things off with our first episode. This is fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And for everyone who's watching live, go ahead and just drop a like. Go ahead and mention something in the comments. Let us know where you're chiming in from and what brought you here today. Obviously, this is our very first episode, so we are so excited to be able to be here with you. And we have some really great topics to be discussing today. The overall title of the show today is What I've Learned from Investing in Myself. And just to give a little bit of a context for this conversation, Mike Abramowitz and I have been working together for the last 4 years. I've been his coach and him being the client. And I mentioned this in our kind of pre-podcast launch, but Mike has really internalized so many of the lessons that Better Than Rich has and has really become a master. And so he's going to be joining me on a lot of these shows to discuss what it is that he's learning and what it is that he's learned over the last 4 years. And that's kind of the topic of today. But again, if you're with us, drop a like. One of the best things you could do is share this. It helps us reach a larger audience as well. And whether on YouTube or Facebook, we're in both places. So if you're on Facebook, maybe check us out on YouTube. Hit like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you'll be up to date on all of these episodes. But let's dive in. And Mike, I mean, just to kick things off, obviously it is bright and early Sunday morning. The sun's not even out where I'm at, and we're jumping into a podcast. Man, just fill us in. Like, why are you here, and what are you excited about talking about today?
Well, I mean, the number one reason why I'm here is because I believe that you've served me at the highest level during the last few years. I remember we celebrated our 100th call. I don't know, probably about a year ago, and maybe more than that. I don't even know at this point, but it was really cool to look back when we had our 100th call and we celebrated that milestone, and to think of just how much I've been able to learn and grow, and how many blind spots have been exposed, and how many masks I was wearing, and just how much I've learned. And I feel it's so compelled to share some of those lessons that you've helped me reveal and unveil about myself, whether it be with business or relationship or just identity. I mean, there's so much to unpack during those last couple of years that it's critical for me to do my part in helping other people learn the lessons that you've taught me. And I thought this would be a great platform for us to be able to do that. So I'm really excited about that, and sharing some of those lessons from Biggs.
There you go. Well, also, I mean, just to piggyback on that, I've also learned so much from you. And what's maybe one of the biggest myths is that the coaches don't learn from their clients. And I can tell you that every single day I learn something from my clients, whether it's something specific that they're teaching me, or it's something that I need to work on in myself, that for some reason there's a block there. There's something there where I can't produce a transformation when I want to produce a transformation, or when they need a transformation. And so clients teach their coaches just as much, just like, kids teach their parents just as much as parents teach their kids. And, I think that this is going to be fun, man, to dive in. And I can't wait to unpack it. So, and by the way, again, I'm going to be sharing some of my biggest lessons of being a coach over the last 4 years as well. So, Mike, I mean, I'm going to kick it over to you and let you kind of start things off. But yeah, man, what's the first lesson that you want to share that you've learned from investing in yourself? Tell us a little bit more.
So in no particular order, I would say the first one that really resonated with me is why are certain things in my life? So we've had many of these conversations of, why am I with Vector Marketing? Like, why is Vector and Cutco in my life? Why did I marry my wife, Lindsay? What is she here to teach me? What is Vector here to teach me? What are certain staff members here to teach me? What are the gifts that I've got from, everything from my mom dying when I was 20 to, overcoming any type of obstacles in the past. So I was already on a journey of understanding and revealing the gifts and things that happen in life, but you helped me take it just a step further of not just finding the gift, but also the purpose behind it. Like, what is it here to teach me? And I think the big revelation specifically was with my wife of
Mm,
Lindsay. I told her this yesterday, and I said, "No, what is Lindsay here to teach me? Why her?" Um, and it was really interesting conversations that you and I had, but it was one of the most impactful ones because once I revealed that, then I was able to say, "Holy shit!" Like, okay, I could be way more intentional with my relationship if I know that that's what she's here to teach me. So
mm.
that was a really big valuable lesson, and of course we could go into what those lessons are, but that could
Yeah.
probably be a whole episode in itself. But that was one
Yeah.
big one.
And the frame there for anyone who's listening is just an assumption that whatever is showing up in your life is here to teach you a lesson. What if we just started with that basic assumption? Okay, you get in your car, you're in a traffic jam. What is this traffic jam here to teach me? You're having a conversation with a potential client, or you're having a conversation with a potential person to join the team, and it's frustrating. Okay, what is this client or this potential person to join the team here to teach me? And just always having this frame, if there's something in my life, maybe it's a habit or something that you struggle with, where you can't seem to wake up on time, or you're always inconsistent, or you struggle with your exercise habits or your diet habits. It's like all of these things are here to teach you something. And so just starting with that basic assumption that no matter what it is that's in your life, it's here to teach you something, that obviously starts to frame things not as problems, but as opportunities. It starts to switch that framing and that lens that we're looking at things with, so we can start to think, okay, when I assume that whatever is showing up in my life is here to teach me something, well, then I'm going to start learning stuff, instead of just accepting my fate in reality. And that's not what anybody who's in the personal growth space would ever tell you to do. We aren't here to just accept whatever comes into our lives and to be kind of at effect of our environment. Instead, we're going to be the cause of the environment. We're going to step out and actually impact it. We're going to influence it. We're going to make it better. We're going to make our lives better through choices, right? We're going to make intentional choices. Mike, anything come up for you on that as we're just pitching and catching here?
Yeah. It just by asking the question, what is this here to teach me? I mean, we've had, like I said, many conversations about that. Specifically, like you said, it could be something as small as the traffic jam. I know one of our topics that I've talked about with you is patience many times over of like, man, these kids just bother me sometimes. Like, like I'm working with these college kids. I'm like, they just bother me. It's like, great. Well, what are they here to teach you? And I'm like, how to not be bothered, but it came down to patience and how important it is for me to understand that and own that and honor that from these individuals in my life. And then,
Hmm.
I like what you just said about the intentionality of learning. Like it's a choice. It does take intentionality to learn and to choose to learn, because sometimes we don't want to. We want to just take things for this is how it is, or this is what it's going to be, or I mean, you can look at what's happening on media and social media right now as a perfect example that it's like this is how it's going to be, and this is how it is. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not even
Mm.
close.
Hmm.
It's more of like, what is this here to teach you? What is this here to show you? What are you getting exposed to, by seeing this? Like sometimes I'll get trapped in the vortex of like seeing what's on social media or media, not necessarily to get influence, but just from a curiosity standpoint of like, what is actually influencing the public space right now, just so I could try to like immerse myself and see if I can get influence. And sometimes I could get triggered, but I could be aware of it because I'm coming from a lens of what is this teaching me versus is this real? Oh my goodness. If that's really happening, I need to go buy a lot of toilet paper. My goodness, that's what everyone else is doing. I guess that's what I'm supposed to go to too.
Hmm.
Where even though I had a lot of toilet paper already, I didn't know I needed more.
There you go.
As one simple example, but
Right. Totally. Yeah, man, I love it. And I think what you're bringing up there is really important, and it's okay to have your ear to the ground, more so than ever, amidst coronavirus, 2020 election, all this crazy stuff. As somebody who's doing their civic duty and wants to be involved, I think it is important to have your ear to the ground, and also it's important to not get sucked into it, right, and not be sucked into the story. We want to be able to have some sort of gap between being triggered and then responding or reacting. So, I mean, that in and of itself is probably a whole nother lesson. I mean, by the way, if you're with us in the comments, if for some reason our comments aren't streaming in from our platform here, but hopefully you guys are doing okay. And maybe Mike, with your you have the Facebook Live pulled up, so maybe if somebody chimes in there, you can kind of manage the comments today. But here we're gonna be pretty real. We're gonna be pretty raw. We're gonna be honest. I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit, Mike. You said, hey, I asked you a question. What is my wife here to teach me? Obviously, in the context of you and Lindsay. Do you mind sharing a little bit about what came up for you, when you thought about that and what the lesson really was that she's here to teach you?
Sure. Well, it's funny because I was interviewed on the Changing Lives Selling Knives podcast, and my response on that podcast was lessons I learned from individuals in my life. And one of the lessons that I said in that was I learned patience in my relationship. And she's like, that's not a compliment, learning patience in a relationship. I said, it's not, it's just a lesson that I'm learning. It's not meant to be negative or positive. It's just a lesson I'm learning by being in a relationship, not necessarily with you, just in a relationship in general. But the biggest lesson that she is here to teach me, although I've learned many lessons, I've learned things from politics to understanding, just different family values, the whole different lens of life. I mean, just organization to a whole new level. I mean, it's great, but the number one thing of what she's here to teach me is masculinity, and that's what you and I have kind of unveiled. Is the backstory on that is growing up as the youngest of 8, so up in New Jersey, I had to go back to my very earliest memory. And I've gone through a lot of workshops with you and Tony Robbins and Date with Destiny, but going back to my very earliest memory to really think of, was I more of a feminine man or a more masculine man, or a more feminine kid or a more masculine kid? And I had to really dig deep. And my earliest memory I was able to get to was in nursery school. I went to Hebrew school, and my earliest memory I can remember was me like making people laugh and being almost like the center of attention. And like that was kind of the memory that I had. So therefore I was like, okay, I was owning my presence more masculine. Okay, cool. So I could own that. But then I had, my sisters, the closest in age to me, they would kind of like baby me a little bit. My oldest sister called me yummy. That's how she would describe me. I was very like soft. My mom babied me. So therefore I had these women in my life to kind of like baby and coddle me, which put this feminine softness to me. And then when I moved out of New Jersey to go to college, I put on this mask of independence. I'm like, no, I don't want to be baby anymore. I put this mask of independence on, and then learning meditation and stillness. Then I was like, oh, let me put on the softness again of this. So it was like mask on top of mask on top of mask on top of mask. Where why is Lindsay in my life? And what you helped me realize is to put all those masks down and just get back and strengthen my masculine core that I initially had at my very first memory. And she'll expose that out of me and draw that out of me in many different conversations and situations, whether it's life situations or just my response to certain things. And there was a great book you recommended that I read, and that was The Way of the Superior Man, which dramatically changed my paradigm of what it means to be in a relationship and how to honor your woman in that relationship, and also how to honor my own presence as the man in that relationship, or the masculine energy, not necessarily the man, but the masculine energy, and creating polarity in the relationship. So, and understanding that dynamic, because Lindsay is the oldest of 3 girls, And then when her dad passed, she kind of almost took that the patriarchal role of being the oldest and being, so it was almost like she kind of owned this masculine trait in her family by design, just, or really just how circumstances unfolded. So by her kind of having more of that energetic coming into our relationship, it was really great for me to be have my partner teach me some of those things, but also almost like force me to own some of those characteristics to be able to honor her natural feminine energy by me making sure that I'm owning my masculine. Because if I'm not owning the masculine, there's got to be polarity, then she's going to have to own it. So it's like, no, fuck that. Like, I need to own it. I need to step into that, so that way I can make sure that she feels comfortable in her feminine core. So
yeah, it's a beautiful way of putting it. Mask on top of mask on top of mask, and I think that could be almost a theme for the modern era, right? A series of masks, ever continuing to distance yourself from your true authentic self. And I think that is how a lot of people end up living. And that's how a lot of people end up dying, because they never actually do the work that you're talking about. I mean, some of the things that you're talking about, going back to your deepest memory, your first memory as a child, really reflecting on these sorts of experiences that have shaped you. I mean, you can tell Mike has gone deep. I've gone deep as well. It's kind of one of the things we like to do here. And also, let me just ask you a real question, man. Is that scary to go there and to actually think about these things?
For me, it wasn't necessarily scary, because I was coming from a place of curiosity. So I was very curious and not judgmental. And I know you kind of guided and pre-framed me to believe that. So I think because I had you kind of Sherpa me through what type of emotion I should have, and led with curiosity versus judgment, because I remember a conversation you and I had about that judgment is like the very base level of violence. So it's like, if we come into a situation where I'm coming from a place of judgment, then that could lead more towards a violent approach to myself, which has happened, where curiosity is more of this gentleness, softness, where it gives myself permission to say, let's go explore, let's kind of poke around a little bit and see what's actually true. And so I don't think there was too much fear around that much, but I could see how it could be for some people, because if they are approaching some of those inner stories and it's not what they expected. So for me, if I went into it and I was like, shit, okay, I was actually a quite feminine boy, and that might be deemed I know you and I had conversations about that, as am I gay? I had to go into these questions. And so I guess maybe those questions were a little scary for me.
Right. And it's it's okay. You can be feminine and not be gay, which is, again, a whole nother thing.
At that time, I was being vulnerable and being very curious.
That is some real curiosity. I appreciate that. Yeah.
That was real. It was totally real. So maybe there was a little fear there around that. But I guess by not having the judgment, by making sure I was curious, by going through the process of just honoring myself and wanting to peel back some of those layers, I was able to get to some of the truth. And the saying, truth will set you free. And once I got that information, once I was able to kind of do some of that digging, then I was like, cool, I can build on a foundation that's rooted into what's real versus what's rooted into what society thinks I'm supposed to root into.
Right. Awesome, man. Thanks for sharing. And, that is kind of an important thing. If you're a leader, or even just for yourself, and you want to get to the truth, you have to create a space where the truth feels comfortable to come out, right? And, if we just think about it from a therapist's perspective, the idea is to create psychological safety within the room, right? So that the person can share whatever comes up, whether they like it or not, whether they love it about themselves, or they hate it about themselves. The whole point of getting therapy is to just have the space that's safe to be able to bring up anything. And to your point, I mean, I've had so many people bring up things that they've never shared with anybody, and things that they have, in some ways, are just revealing to themselves. And that's kind of the idea of psychological safety, is that finally there's a safe space where I can actually explore this without it having the ramifications of social ramifications or personal ramifications, or it doesn't affect my income or my job or my employment or anything like that. It doesn't affect my relationships because I have this safe space to explore it. So if you are a leader and you want people to be more honest with you, you need to be asking the question, how can I create psychological safety for my team? How can I make it more safe for people to come to me with their problems? Because too often, people don't feel comfortable coming to anybody with their problems, let alone people of authority, let alone people that they report to. So we need to make sure that we're creating that sort of psychological safety, and that way they can actually come to us with their problems. If you guys are listening, you can relate to this. But having somebody, on your team where you think things are going really well, they're responding really well to your leadership, and you think things are just fine, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they quit. Or out of nowhere, a client drops out and says, "Yeah, no thanks, I'm not interested in working with you anymore." And in some ways, you never really get the real answer. They give you some sort of smokescreen answer. Yeah, it's just, not working out, or, I need to take some more time for myself, or, I got this other opportunity, thanks but no thanks, and then you never really hear back from them again. And the reason for this, generally speaking, is you didn't make it safe enough for them to bring whatever problems or issues they had with you up. So even in my practice as a coach, I'm always trying to keep my ear to the ground on what my relationship with different clients is, and, trying to make it safe where if they feel like they aren't getting the value that they need, I create the space where they can be like, "Hey man, I'm not getting what I need from you." And then we can have a conversation about it. And if I really can't fulfill their needs, then I'll say, "Hey, look, I can't do that for you. You need to go somewhere else." But if I can, then I'll say, "Hey, thanks for bringing this up. I really wasn't aware that this is what you needed. Let's put together a plan to make it happen." So, I think that it's just important for us to be thinking about these things as we're diving in today. So I'm gonna share one of mine. And one of the things that I wrote down as I was reflecting on some of the lessons I've learned from the last 4 years. One that I think is really key and really important that not a lot of people understand is that the market determines your value. Okay, the market determines your value. What that really means is I have so many people come to me and say, "Hey, Andrew, I'm making 60,000 or I'm making 80,000, and I'm not making enough. I feel like I'm worth 100K. I should be a six-figure earner, or I should be making 150, 200,000 or whatever. I don't know why I'm not getting the money I deserve." And unfortunately, sometimes I have to kind of throw cold water on them. I do appreciate when people have this ear for growth and this eye for growth, and they want to go beyond. But you actually, from a financial perspective, don't get to determine what you're worth. The market will determine what your pay will be. And so if you're not making six figures, if you're not making 150 or 200 or whatever it is that you want to make, seven figures eventually, then you need to say, how can I actually become more valuable? What is the pathway for me to actually increase my level of value that I'm offering to the marketplace, and therefore actually receive the funds that I want to receive to be able to live the life that I want to live? And so many times I think this is maybe just a fact and reality of the sense of entitlement that particularly my generation, the millennials, and probably upcoming generations have as well. It's well documented that Gen Z and the boomers and the silent generation think that we are very entitled, and I think they definitely have some points there. But essentially, you're not owed anything, right? The world doesn't owe you anything. The market doesn't owe you anything. You need to add value to get something in return. And so sometimes I see people struggle with that, and they come to me and they want to know why they're not making what they want to make. And I just simply have to say, well, the market determines your value. And by the way, the same thing goes for me. I eventually would love to be able to make 7 figures in a year. Apparently what the market is telling me is that I'm not worth 7 figures just yet. Fair enough. What do I need to do today to get better? If I want to make $1 million or more in a year, I don't need 100 million, but 1 million would be nice. And let's figure that out. Let's work on it. Let's put together a plan to add more value to the marketplace. So my rant is over. Mike, what comes up for you on this topic? Anything that sparked your interest?
Yeah, because we used to talk about that, especially when I was, working with the schools with Grab Tomorrow and trying to get it into the schools. And I'm like, we put in a lot of hours of trying to get things launched and get these gigs and get these clients and doing the enrollment conversations. And I mean, we spent many, many hours kind of working through that. And I was like, I deserve this. I gave them 300 plus hours of speaking. I mean, the least they could do is buy my book. It's like, I deserve this. I earned this. And I remember we had many of those conversations of like, you don't deserve anything if you're not getting it. Like life, it responds to what problem are you solving in the marketplace? Are you helping them solve a certain problem? And when I started approaching it from that lens, that's when I started getting some clients and getting some gigs and getting some book sales of like, what problem am I helping them solve? And am I able to prove it? And then I was able to do that. So, so for any of the coaches out there or anyone who's, in business, I think it's a valid question to just ask. Like, for example, if you're, we sell Cutco, in my organization. So it's like a very easy one. It's like, if you're solving the problem of just crappy knives, how much is someone willing to spend to solve the problem of crappy knives? If you're able to solve the problem of spending more time with their family, and they could say, spending more time with my family is going to be correlated to investing in this product line. Well, that's a bigger problem. And therefore I'm more likely to spend more money on solving that problem. If it's, I want to live a healthier lifestyle, cooking at home and eating healthy and spending more time in my home with my family and having more family fun activities and activating creativity in the kitchen. Well, now it's an even bigger problem that we can solve, which means I'm more likely to spend more money solving that problem than just getting better knives.
Totally.
So the bigger the problem that we can solve, the more people are going to spend to solve that problem.
And if you're in sales or you're in leadership, the biggest thing that you need to to master in general is the art of discovery, right? Can you actually determine what this person's values are and ask enough questions to determine where I should even take this conversation? What is the right way and what are the certain pain points or hit points that I need to focus on that my product or service can actually support them with? And so many people want to just demonstrate a product or just demonstrate a service. Hey, our service is great. Here's what you can expect. You get this many calls and this many, group calls and this many retreats or whatever. You get this many knives in this set, or you get this software product or whatever it is that you're selling. They want to just demonstrate it, but really that doesn't matter. You're trying to sell the airplane in that case instead of the destination. And we got to make sure that if we're going to be in sales or leadership, we're showing people what the destination is going to look like. Hey, you're going to spend more time with your family. Hey, you're going to, save money because of you're not going to eat out as much. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. That's selling the destination. That's talking about the sitting on the beach, drinking margaritas or whatever, as opposed to, hey, wake up at 4 a.m. and, get on a Spirit Airlines flight to the Bahamas. That doesn't sound all that exciting. So don't talk about the airplane, talk about the destination, and, you're going to do pretty well. So, hey, I asked you a question coming into this to send me your notes. I wanted to ask you about imposter syndrome. Like, from your perspective, what is imposter syndrome? And, what have you learned about it? What's your take? How have you overcome it? I talk to so many people who struggle with imposter syndrome. So first off, what is it? And what can people do to overcome it? Talk a little bit about that for a sec.
For me, imposter syndrome was feeling like I am trying to just do what everyone else is doing already, and I'm just trying to am I worthy to, you know, enter the space that other people are already in? Am I worthy of, receiving any of the clout or recognition or notoriety that comes with that? Am I actually good enough to offer the value that I believe I'm able to offer to the marketplace? So these are all the questions that would kind of come up for me in this concept of am I good enough? Like, am I good enough as a manager? Am I good enough as a leader? Am I good enough as an author? Am I good enough as a speaker? So all of these questions would come around, just not being my authentic self. So what you really helped me with and getting connected to is getting more connected to what is my authentic self, regardless of, if there's not people around me, forget about everyone else around me. And if I'm able to just go here and think who I am, what is my message, what is my purpose, what is my identity, what do people need, how can I serve them? It allowed me to just kind of get more in touch with my authentic self and lead from that space and not worry so much about what everyone else is going to think of me, or am I worthy of everything, because I'm just going to show up and serve. And what's interesting is by practicing that, and it is definitely a practice, because anything is ritual for me. I mean, I have to be very habitual, because if I don't, it's very easy for me to just go away and just isolate and just not want to be in the public space, because I would say I identify as an introvert. If you look at my CVI chart, I'm a heavy banker innovator. So it's like a 26 and an 18 banker innovator. So it's very dominant, which really pushes me more towards introvert more than anything. So it's against my grain to want to be in the spotlight or want to, do things like this. But I also need to know what's intelligent. And if I know my purpose and I know my authentic truth is to serve as many people as possible and take all the gifts and things that I've learned in my life and help other people, then I need to step into a version of me that can serve as many people as possible. So that takes intentionality, that takes effort, that takes focus. So as long as I do that, I'm going to be able to honor my authentic self and know that I am putting in the work. I'm not being an imposter. I'm not trying to be someone else. I'm putting in the work. I am waking up early. I am doing my morning routines. I am doing my meditations. I am doing my workouts. I am reading books. I am listening to podcasts. So therefore, I'm not an imposter. I'm just literally sharing what's working for me. And if that serves other people, then so be it. I'm going to share it with other people. So I think part of me where I wasn't congruent was when I wasn't doing those things, but yet I felt like I was still worthy of those outcomes. And that's where that imposter syndrome would come from, where it was like, I'm worthy of all these things that are supposed to come to me, kind of like what we previously said, but I wasn't doing all of those things. I wasn't doing all of that deep work. And that's where the incongruencies were kind of coming in to myself, because it was like, I got more work to do. And once I really started putting in that work and being intentional with it, I felt more worthy for everything that was coming into my life.
Yeah, totally. I'll never forget, I was actually at a retreat in San Francisco at an event, and we asked the room, because somebody had an authentic share and a vulnerable share. They said, yeah, sometimes I feel like an imposter. I look around the room and I think, man, I'm low man on the totem pole here. I don't feel like I deserve to be in this room of all-stars and expert business people and all of these different things. And then, simply, I was like, hey, everyone raise your hand if you felt like this person felt before. And more than half the room raised their hand, right? And this is a room of very powerful, influential, overall wealthy people. And it was pretty cool that almost everybody struggled with it. And so it actually speaks to something that's a little bit deeper, right? It speaks to this like human nature of not feeling worthy. And there might be something to that, right? Like you said, putting in the work, putting in the effort to kind of earn it. And I think, here's my lesson for anybody who struggles with imposter syndrome is a way to reframe it for yourself. Because you were talking, Mike, at length there that I thought was really good about, am I worthy? Am I good enough? And if you've ever struggled with the question, am I good enough? The answer that you want to come up with is, let's find out. Let's find out if I'm good enough. Let me put in all the effort. Let me put in all the work. Let me leave it all on the court. Let me put it all on the field. And let's find out if I'm good enough. If you know what, if I do that and I find out that I'm not good enough and I fall short of what I thought I was capable of, fair enough. At least I left it all on the court and I learned my lesson. And by the way, you're going to be a lot further than you would have been if you hadn't put those efforts forth. So that's my challenge to you all if you're listening today and asking yourself, am I good enough? Ask yourself to find out and to congruently put forth the effort to be able to see if you're good enough. And by the way, sometimes the answer will be yes, sometimes the answer will be no, but you'll never find out if you just sit on the sidelines wondering. So, Mike, any thought on that?
Yeah, I love that reminder, because even for me, I was like, I heard this before. What is he going to say?
Totally.
And when you said, let's find out, I was like, yes, I do remember this conversation. Let's find out. And it's a great one. I would write that down. I would encourage anyone to write that down and just keep that in mind when you go through your day. It's like, am I good enough? Let's find out. Let's find out. That's totally good. I like that. It's a good reminder.
Awesome. So the next one that I'll bring up, and by the way, this will probably end up being a 2-part series. We have so many things that we're going to unpack, and we're going to be with you guys every single day for the next 75 days or 74 days after this, leading into 2021. So the idea is, if you want to have an awesome 2021, if you want 2021 to be your year, start your morning here with us every single day. We might move the timings around, but at least for the next 3-4 days, we're going to have it right here at this same time, at the same place where you're at. Obviously, you can always watch back the recording if you can't make it on live. And then we're also going to package these into an actual podcast and put it up, on iTunes as well for you to listen back. That might take a few weeks before it gets packaged and released there. We are going to have a little bit of a launch party for that. So if you want to join our launch party, make a note in the chat. And like I said, we're not seeing the comments here right now, but we'll go back and answer all of your comments when we have time after this recording. So the next thing that I'm going to bring up is being unattached. And I think that this is one of my favorite topics that I really had to learn as a leader, as a coach over the last 4 years. And the concept of being attached in general basically means that you see something as necessary for you. It's almost as if it has to go a certain way. You need it to go a certain way in order for you to be successful, in order for you to be happy, or whatever. And so whenever we're attached to a particular outcome, obviously when that outcome doesn't occur, then we experience suffering. This we'll probably at some point talk about spirituality, about religion, and these sorts of things. I'm not going to say, get too far into that right now. But from a Buddhist perspective, what the Buddha would say is, well, that is actually the root of all human suffering, right? Is that we're attached to a particular outcome, and then when that outcome doesn't, manifest, then we experience suffering. So the practice for the Buddhist, and I believe in all spiritual practices, this lesson is woven in, albeit in some more subtle ways in, say, Christian texts and other texts, but it's still there for sure, is to release attachment to things, release attachment to physical things, release attachment to our own identities, release attachment to particular outcomes that we'd like to see. And so when I talk about being unattached in this context, typically I'm working with salespeople, with leaders, and, they have goals, they have outcomes that they want to hit, whether it's numbers in their business, whether it's income they want to make, whether it's, living a certain lifestyle, or maybe it's something inside their relationships or something like that. And so whenever we're attached, again, we're trying to hold on to the outcome. And by the way, the energy that we're giving off, let's say in a sales context, saying, okay, I want to make this sale. Well, the energy that we're giving off is a very desperate energy, right? And And it's an energy of, I need you to sign up. I need you to buy. I need this so I can fill in the blank. And this is a very dangerous energy to bring into a sales exchange, into a leadership exchange. Whenever we're attached, we're giving off these desperate vibes, and everyone listening to this knows what it feels like to be led by somebody who has, a desperate vibe, to be sold to by somebody at a car dealership or at, some product that you're looking into, who's desperate for the sale. And so actually, ironically, what we're doing, as opposed to attracting this person to us, we're actually repelling them. We're actually giving off a signal that they shouldn't buy and they shouldn't trust us, right? Because we have an agenda here. There's more than just me trying to serve you at the highest level that's being involved here. And, one of the biggest things that I had to learn, becoming an entrepreneur, is to actually simply act on behalf of my clients, actually simply do what's right for them. And sometimes if that means they don't sign up and it's not a sale, no worries, it's not a sale. But if we can be unattached, it's actually a very attractive energy, and people are actually drawn towards that, partially because, just a human psychology thing that people want what they can't have. And so there's a little bit of of understanding there about being unattached. I feel like we could do an entire lesson just on this, Mike, and unpack it further, but I'm going to kick it to you. Any thoughts on this? Because I know this has been a big part of your learning over the last 4 years, and I've watched you really start to master this and get better and better at it.
Yeah, especially as a district manager at Vector and Cutco, there was a saying that you're going to attract people like you. So it's like you could look at someone's team and you could say, "Oh my gosh, they're all mini blanks." Fill in your name, and that was a good thing if you were really good. So that's a very positive thing. And we used to say that if you had done this habit, then your people are going to have this habit. If you think this way, your people are going to think this way. There are going to be many versions of you, which is a good thing. And that's what kept me fairly mediocre as a manager for quite some time, because not that I wasn't great, but I didn't break records when I was new. I wasn't the best. I didn't get the fastest start, so it was like, great, this is just how it's going to be. But you and I had many conversations more so about what does it need to look like to attract the sharp kids, or to attract the people that I want. Who do I want? If I had to describe the perfect avatar of a representative I want to work with, or a management candidate that I want to work with, how would I describe them? And I know you and I have kind of gone through some of those lessons. It's like, cool, well then who do I need to become in order to be able to attract these people? And that way, when I'm in a conversation with these people, it's not desperate. It's already like, I know who I need to be in order to make sure that they are, I'm being like a magnet, and I'm compelling them to join, versus like you said, where I'm repelling them because I'm coming from a place of either non-worthiness or attachment or desperation, or whatever the word might be, because I've been there before, where it's like, you're sharper than me, man. It's like, man, you're just so good. How am I going to work with you? So I've definitely been guilty of that. And I guess the original question is how do you own that? I mean, we could explore that if you'd like.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I see is, at its base, you need to get to a point where it's like, I don't need anyone. I don't need anyone. I don't need anything. I don't need any particular client or any particular sale. I don't need any particular person on my team. And you have to get to that point of saying, I'm self-sufficient. I have a vision. We're going there with or without you. We'd love to have you on board. And here's how I could see you fitting in. And also, if it's not a fit, it's not a fit, right? And so just making sure that you get to the place energetically where you don't need anything or anyone. And I see so many people, I get some texts sometimes where it's like, expletive, so-and-so just quit. expletive. I just lost this contract or whatever. And the truth is that that's really not the energy that we want to have ever. I love every single one of my clients. I hope they work with me for a really long time. And also, truly, if any of them came to me and said, hey, I don't think it's in our best interest to work together anymore, so long as they weren't, backing out of a contractual obligation, I'd say, hey, no worries. Like, hey, best of luck to you in the future. And, let's stay in touch and maybe it'll make sense in the future and we'll circle back. And I think that's the sort of energy that people really want, especially in the modern sort of market climate of there's so much BS out there. There's so many people who are, claiming and purporting to be experts in this or in that, trying to sell you something. You get inundated with advertising all the time, whether or not you realize it. And so just an authentic, genuine relationship goes a long way for people. What's coming up for you on this topic, Mike?
The individuals that are really in personal growth, which are going to be the ones that are obviously listening to this, I think it's going to resonate with them the most, because we've all been in that situation. We've all felt that feeling, whether or not we're aware of it, because sometimes the ego tries to protect us and say, that's on them. We'll try to say, the ego will protect us and they'll say, they're just an idiot. They're just not there. Anytime we say that, that's like the ego trying to protect us. That's, the judge coming in, or a saboteur coming in to say, yeah. It's not on me, it's on them. And what you're saying and what we're saying is no, it's on you. That if they're backing out of what you just said, like, hey, I don't think we should work together anymore, then that's on you to, number one, honor them and send them on their way and leave with good standing, and make sure that you still serve your purpose, which was originally to help them. And just because now you're not doing business together, now it's like, well, screw you, you're stupid. So I think as long as we're owning that space, regardless of whether or not we're doing business with them, that's the first thing that comes up with me, is making sure that we are staying aligned to our truth and what we believe and what our identity is, regardless of whatever their decision is. So if their decision is to leave, hey, I wish you all the best. If their decision is to stay, then it's like, great. These are the expectations and standards to make it a win-win. And I'd love to have you here. I'd love to do business with you. I'd love to have you stay. But these are kind of the guidelines of for us to, stay in this working relationship. I know you and I, again, we've had lots of conversations around that too.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about that concept of win-win? Like, what does win-win mean to you? And how do you go about enforcing win-win relationships in your life?
So win-win to me is I need to know what I'm willing to tolerate, or what I'm willing to, what my expectations and what my standards are first. And I know at some points in my life, I didn't have those, like I didn't know what those answers were. And that's where it would make it really tough. Even back 2016, when Biggs, you started talking with me and coaching me, you asked me some of those questions, and I was like, I couldn't answer them directly. It wasn't clear. So since I was not clear on what my expectations, standards, what was I willing to tolerate, well, therefore it's impossible to make anything a win-win, because it's not on my terms. It's going to be on someone else's terms. So that was really important for me to, number one, I had to define what are my standards, what are my expectations, what am I willing to tolerate in this relationship. So creating almost like the rules of engagement. Then once I know what I'm willing to accept, what I'm willing to tolerate, and if I'm in an exchange with someone, I want to lay the foundation or the framework. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be like, in order for us to be in this working relationship, you need to follow this. It doesn't have to be so candid and so blunt, but at least like it's framed in a way that lets them know what I'm willing to, what I'm willing to tolerate. And I just had a conversation with someone in my organization where it was like, were the expectations unclear? Like, was anything unclear? And sometimes it's like, yeah, it was unclear. I didn't know about that. Okay, then that's my fault. I want to be more clear. I apologize. Like, that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable for us to be in this relationship, and you didn't know that I expected that. So I apologize on that. But moving forward, these are the expectations. These are the standards. Are we clear on that? Do you have any questions on that? Do you want to challenge any of that? Do you feel like any of that is you know not feasible or
Right.
unattainable,
Unreasonable. Right.
unreasonable? And then it's like, no, 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 those are good. It's cool. And then if they ever go outside the box again, it's like, well, let's talk. Because now that you know the expectations are clear, now we're this situation again, it's not a win-win, meaning maybe you're getting good stuff but I'm not.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's opposite, where it's like, listen, I feel like I'm getting a lot out. Sometimes I'll have this conversation. I feel like I'm getting a lot out of this relationship. I want to make sure that you're equally benefiting mutually from this relationship.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you, why is that important? Why not just take advantage of the person? Like, I'm obviously playing devil's advocate here, but
Sure.
if you're getting a lot and they're getting a little, like, why even push for some sort of equal balance in exchange there?
Well, eventually it's going to come. Eventually, it's going to come to surface. I
Right.
mean, I might as well be the leader and bring that to the surface now. And I think, if they're naive and they don't see it, they're eventually going to. And then, what type of reputation is that going to create for me? And also, what type of relationship is that going to have with that person once they are not so naive anymore?
Hmm.
So I want to be a person of influence. So therefore, I'm going to say, listen, I'm benefiting from this interaction. I want to make sure you're mutually benefiting from this interaction too. What are you enjoying about this? What is good for you? How are you doing? And asking those questions, risking. It's like, well, actually, I feel like I'm overworked, or I feel like I'm not appreciated.
Hmm.
I even with my wife, there's been times in our relationship where I've had to have this conversation of like, I'm feeling pretty good. Like, how are you feeling right now? And most of the time it was like, I feel good. Sometimes it was like, you used to send me text messages, those random texts, or like just validating and like giving me some more words, or, sometimes it was like, it would be nice if you'd empty the dishwasher, and sometimes it was some of those where it's like, I felt great, but I was missing these small little things. So it's like, great, that feedback is welcomed, because I want to make sure it is a win-win, because I care about you. I also care about me, but I also care about you. So it's got to be mutually benefit. And then if it's no, like, I'm not willing to hold my end of the deal, you're not willing to hold your end of the deal. Well, if there's no compromise, then it's just no deal. Like, we're not
Right.
we're not gonna we're not gonna continue in this relationship if we're not able to make it mutually beneficial.
Right. Now, obviously, in a marriage context, that becomes a little
Marriage is a little
different,
different.
right? Because there is vows and commitment that you've made. But I think
But
that
what's
yes, in a
interesting though,
business context, yes, there's no such serious commitment. Um, Go
and
ahead.
with the marriage, even with the marriage though, it is, as long as there's communication with that though, because it's like, hey, in this mini little battle, we'll call it,
Sure.
not but like in this mini little segment, I just, I don't know, that just didn't feel good. That didn't feel good for me. Well, it felt good for me, but well, it didn't feel good for me. Like, I think we need to talk about this.
Hmm.
And sometimes that's important, because why? That similar encounter might happen again. And if your partner doesn't know that it didn't feel good with you that previous time, then it might come up again. So it
Hmm.
still comes down to, what am I willing to tolerate? What are my standards? Even if I lost that battle, I told my wife Lindsay yesterday, I said, there's been many times where I lost the battle, not that we're in a war, but that there's conversations that I feel like that just didn't feel good. I lost that one. I missed it. I missed that one, but I can learn from it. So that way it's like, cool. How can I make sure I do better next time, or show up better next time, better for myself or better for you?
Right. And this is this is the classic playbook for you guys to avoid resentment in your relationships, whether it's a business relationship or it's a romantic relationship or a relationship with a sibling or a parent or whatever. Bringing topics to the surface instead of swallowing your words. There's basically two options you have if you're feeling, resentful. You either need to, grow up and, realize that the exchange is completely fair and you're being a baby about it, or you need to start saying something, right, and bringing it up and bringing it to the surface. So let me ask you one more question, and then we can start to head towards the exits here for the day. But you said something earlier about how to, if you are actually benefiting more than the other person in a win-win relationship, how to handle that. What about if the shoe's on the other foot where they're benefiting more, let's say in a business context? How might you bring that up? Because I think a lot of people struggle with kind of holding the line and holding the boundaries. They think, man, I don't want to, scare this person away. I don't want to push the boundaries too hard and hold firm to them. So how do you actually bring that up in a way that's going to maintain the relationship and maintain it in a positive way? What do you see there?
Yeah, this is bringing back 2016 and before. So I think the number one is I still need to know what my standards, my expectations are, what I'm willing to tolerate. And if I realize that this person they're getting more than me, and I realize that they're benefiting more than me from this relationship or from this partnership, I need to know what's the betterment for them still. What goes through my mind is, hey, you're winning right now. I don't feel like I am. I don't think this is fair in this relationship. And here's why. And I'll give proof. This is what you're doing. These are the decisions you're making. These are what you're getting. And this is what the business is getting. This is what I'm getting. I'm putting in all of this. You're putting in all of this. I would give evidence. I wouldn't just talk about them. I would give evidence, number one. And then I would say the people that are watching, the people we're developing, those that are coming up the pipeline are going to witness things. People are always watching. And if they're witnessing this, then they're going to think that that's acceptable. So not only is it affecting me and the business, but it's also affecting the future development that's coming up into the rankings that are watching your behavior, thinking that's okay and that's acceptable, which is then going to compromise the integrity of the entire organization as a whole. So therefore, it's not okay. So yes, you're getting the paycheck. Yes, you're getting a flexible schedule. Yes, you're getting blankety blank, but it's compromising the integrity of my organization. And also I'm putting in all this other work that you're not doing as well. And moving forward, it's just not okay. So I want to create new terms of engagement, new terms of what are the rules of our organization? What are the standards? What are the expectations? Let's revisit those. And if for some reason you feel like that's not okay, then unfortunately we'll probably have to make different decisions and we might have to go in different directions. I love you. I like working with you. I think you're fantastic. I want you here, but not on the current terms that we're in right now. So are you open to at least having the conversation with me to see what some of the new terms could look like and drawing some of that out and seeing if it could be a mutually benefit win-win type of situation? And if it's not, then we'll just have to move in different directions. Totally. And then we'll have the conversation and see what that would look like. What does mutually beneficial look like? And I also think it's very important to have that emotional unattachment to say, I'm doing what's fair and what's right more so than being righteous. And I know you and I have had that conversation before of like being righteous, like this is my operation. You're supposed to do as I say, and right. Kind of setting some of that aside.
Right. Because everyone loves encountering righteous people, right? I'm obviously being sarcastic there, right? Which I fear that coming up to election day, we're going to see a lot of righteousness on social media. What do you think, Mike? It's going to be pretty intense. It's going to be pretty funny.
It's insane. But anyway, we could talk about that in the future.
Yeah, dude. I mean, well, here's the thing, guys. We're going to start to wrap up. This has been a pleasure. Thanks for everyone joining us live. And if you're watching back the recording, thanks for watching this back. We will go back and read through some of these comments. Like I said, for some reason, they weren't streaming into our software today, but we'll get back to you guys. So if you have a question, drop it in the chat now. And going forward, we're going to try to find a way to actually be able to pull your comments onto the screen and discuss them. So we want this to be an interactive show. By the way, part 2 starts tomorrow. I wrote about 10 different things here on my notes, Mike, of potential things that we can circle back on. So I know you're on the docket for the next few days. I'm going to have some special guests here coming in Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So this is fun. I'm so excited that we're able to kick this thing off. Thanks to everyone who was able to join. And we will let you go on with your day and on with your week. Have a great day. And remember to leave today better than you found it. Thanks so much for joining us.